Let's talk about restricted domain from a new player's perspective. This is a level 64 account. And as such, basically, you can reach level 20 if you did everything or mostly everything correctly. But level 21 is going to be unattainable for you. I will show you my formation. I intentionally didn't bring any other units, just Divine Heralds. Okay, I just unlocked support, so I can place support in there, for example, Attacker Inferno, as well as another Attacker Inferno. Well, I could also find some other Inferno units, for example, Caster Inferno units. This is fine, and this is a possible boost. Now, whether it's Attacker or Charger, it doesn't make a difference. Nothing else is activated. Now, you see that there are 6 units in here. Let me show you why. Artifacts are not available, other things are not available. I brought Crackhack, by the way, because it's a freely available hero. And Crackhack is able to boost the skills of the Divine Herald. That is a lot more important than just simple weak spells. So that's the idea. There is one important factor that you need to consider for restricted domain, which is domains will unleash formidable power that suppress friendly units. The fewer the number of friendly units deployed, the weaker this power will be. Enemy units cannot be disintegrated. What you need to consider is that initially, when you first see restricted domain around the 3rd week or so of your gameplay, and this is already the 5th week, then if you bring your usual units, 8 units in total, then you will get more suppression than if you just brought 1 unit. But that 1 unit needs to be a Divine Herald. The irony and the problem with bringing Divine Heralds is that it doesn't appear until day 21, the end of the 3rd week of a new server. When it appears in the shop in preferred benefits/units, you will see these 1500 diamond offers as well as 1 diamond offers for getting these units. This is why you see so many of these units in here, because initially you get 2 packs of 10 tokens for 1 diamond each. That's why I bought basically everything. And then it costs you 1500 diamonds in total to get them. And then as you get them, basically afterwards you will be able to beat floors 1 to 10, even if you bring a full team. The key to beating floor 11 is that you will have to just use the 3 to 4 units that you bought Divine Heralds. Back then I just had this formation. This is an Inferno formation. And in order to use this formation, basically you'll see what happens. This is my strongest team, by the way, so just Inferno. They are not significantly worse off than the 6-player team. In fact, if I wanted to make myself charger proof, then I just use 2 units to get even less restrictions in restricted domain. A defender and an attacker corrupted fiend. And although you see that in this specific case the amount of restrictions are less important than the number of units brought, it is still an interesting factor. So this is how you prioritize your units. And this is my current set of units. To unleash level 11 to 20, you'll need to make sure that you don't bring any SSR units. I will show you what happens if you just have, let's say, 3 Divine Heralds, and these are the strongest ones, at least for me, the Inferno Fortress ones, and you fill the battlefield with more units. These are not the weakest RSR SSR units, so these are quite strong. In fact, I will bring a Naga. I will bring some more, like this. let's see what happens. We drop like flies. You see, we didn't even heal back. This is the restrictions in play. What can you do to reach level 100? I haven't gotten there. I still need about half a level. I will let you know once I figure it out. But I would assume that you will need emblems, because in every single restricted domain week, there is an emblem chart requirement, and level progress depends on the emblem chart value. And if you've done what I have done, then you're supposed to get quite a lot of emblems, which is, let's see, where is the emblem part? So there are a few emblem boxes here and there. This one, yeah, Red Holy Emblem Selection Pack. So once I activate this, as well as my regular meteorites and as well as my regular orange emblems, then my emblem chart will go drastically up. And this is when you will see that you can pass most likely level 100. We will see it quite soon together. So this, and from then onwards you will have to play this every single week until you decide on skipping, paying diamonds to skip, or until you decide on buying VIP card or quitting the game altogether because of fatigue. All three are desirable options from the perspective of service providers, by the way. Now, let's see. I will basically ask what happened in China. So I prepared a prompt for you. As a strategy game analyst, I am conducting a case study on the design evolution of the Ubisoft plus Playcrab game Might and Magic Era of Chaos. You know, Ubisoft is a publisher, that's the shield, and Playcrab is the operator, that's the weapon. Which is that basically the shield says, well, we don't really need much in terms of to interfere much. And the weapon says, okay, let's bring in this new feature. I am looking for an objective summary of player engagement or player engagement data, rather just player engagement, and forum discussions from the original Chinese release regarding the restricted domain mode. Investigate Chinese player feedback to determine the initial community reception upon release. Focus on how players categorize the new game mode to the high volume battle requirements of this specific feature. Identify if the community prioritized the rewards versus the manual time commitment involved in the mode. Present the top 5 findings as support and support them with quotes from forums. One Chinese or forums or game review sites. That's also a possibility. Once Chinese consensus on the game mode has been determined, investigate if there were changes for the global market once restricted domain was introduced in late 2025. Let's see this prompt. It's gonna generate it live. As a strategy game analyst, you're focused on the restricted domain mode, and that's the Chinese version. Might and Magic Era of Chaos reveal a pivotal moment in the game's power scaling history. Originally launched in the Chinese version, this mode was designed as a high-intensity endgame hurdle. Chinese community consensus, the manual grind dilemma. In the original Chinese release, restricted domain was met with a mixture of awe for its rewards and frustration over its mechanical demands. Unlike the set and forget nature of the earlier PvE modes, this feature requires specific unit synergies and manual timing of hero spells. Well, that's actually a good question, because if there was manual timing of hero spells, that's not bad. For example, I tried Drakon to clone my best Divine Herald back in the days. I tried that when found my way through the level 112. So there is a specific of this instance that I've already analyzed. Top 5 findings from the Chinese forums. So NGA, Tieba, and Show Me Game Center. Categorization as a hardcore check. Players categorize restricted domain not as a daily task, but as a progression wall. It served to distinguish between players who understood unit placement and those who rely solely on combat power. It is the first mode where my Veil level CP didn't automatically grant a win, so combat power. You actually have to watch the battlefield triggers. That's one. The second job syndrome. The volume of battles required was a major point of contention. While many modes in Era of Chaos can be swept, auto-completed, the initial release of Restricted Domain required significant manual time. Between the Guild Underground and now Restricted Domain, this game is becoming a 9-to-5 job. The manual time commitment is exhausting for a mobile title. Then, prioritizing of rewards over sanity. Despite the complaints, the community overwhelmingly prioritized the mode because it provided essential materials for arterial unit domain skills. You hate the grind, but you cannot skip it. Without the domain materials, your units are just half finished. Hero-specific dependency. The reception was heavily influenced by whether a player owned a specific domain-breaking hero. Players without these felt the mode was restricted in name and accessibility. And then tactical elitism, a subsection of the community praised the mode for reviving the strategy in strategic RPG, creating a rift between casual collectors and tactical enthusiasts. So, late 2025, when Restricted Domain was integrated into the global version, Ubisoft and Playcrab implemented several quality of life adjustments based on the 3-year data cycle from the Chinese server. Manual requirements. In Chinese it was high, and spell timing was critical. Global release. Enhanced AI, well, this looks like hallucination to me, but it's auto-playable. I can confirm it's auto-playable. Battle volume, 10+ stages per cycle. Here, higher difficulty, but fewer total battles per week. I mean, there it was per cycle. I don't know what the total number of battles was, but for me it was 100+. Resource drop rate, low incremental. PT system, introduction of domain shard fragments for guaranteed upgrades. Cluttered, required external guides, and here in-game recommendations, direct links to, well, this looks a bit of hallucination. But the most significant shift on global was domain sync mechanic, which allowed players to share upgrade progress across similar unit types. Now, this is basically the first ask. And the second one, so in global, the game mode is about 100 manual battles every week. What did, oh no, not manual, 100 auto battles every week, taking up to 30 minutes per week. Floor 100 is very easy. Floor 101, very easy for, let's say, a 6-month-old account, or even like a 2 to 3 months old account. 401 is unattainable for at least a year, for often 1.5 to 2. So there is not much strategic element. There is not much strategy. Did Chinese players find out about the manual grind? What were the comments? Or find the experience similar? What were the comments? Because in global we have a different experience, 100 auto battles. In the Chinese community, the experience of Restricted Domain followed a trajectory almost identical to what you're seeing in global. The 400 to 101 wall was perceived with even more bitterness due to how it's originally marketed as a strategic content. Chinese players quickly identified that the mode wasn't a test of skill, but a digital checkpoint. Here is how the consensus went. Floor 101 wall, the Veil Gate. In the Chinese version, jump from 100 to 101 was nicknamed as Heaven and Earth Divide. The consensus. Players on TIBA, the Chinese player equivalent or Chinese equivalent of Reddit, noted that floor 100 was designed to give the illusion of progress to free-to-play and low spenders. 101, however, was hard-coded with attribute requirements, specifically unit damage reduction and critical resistance, that were strategically impossible to meet without the newest ultra-rare units and high-star units. Player quote, floor 100 is the end of the game for us. 101 is the start of the game for the developer wallets. Lack of strategy, auto battle fatigue. While the mode was initially teased as requiring manual spellcasting, the reality for the Chinese player base quickly devolved into exactly what you described, 30 minutes of watching a screen. Consensus. Because the difficulty was based on raw stats rather than mechanics or strategy like unit placement. This unit placement only mattered if you were within the 5% of the power requirements. If you weren't, no amount of strategy helped. Player quote, it is not a restricted domain, it is a restricted script. You click auto, go eat dinner and come back to see if combat power was high enough to pass. If not, wait 6 months. The 1.5 year horizon. The community calculated the free-to-play horizon, the time it would take to naturally accumulate enough power to break into 101 plus. Consensus. Chinese analysts estimated that a 3-month-old account could sweep the first 100 floors because of the power inflation built into the game's newest units. However, they identified that the 101 wall was a deliberate anchor designed to keep players logging in for the next 500 plus days. Almost 2 years. The 101 floor is a psychological trap. It makes you feel like you're almost there, so you keep doing your 100 auto battles every week for a year, but the goalposts move every time a new UR is released. Categorization, weekly chore. By 2024, the Chinese community stopped discussing the mode in strategy threats and moved it entirely to efficiency threats. Consensus, it was categorized alongside the statue or artifact systems, not as a game mode to be played, but as a resource stacks. You pay 30 minutes of your life per week to receive the fragments needed to stay relevant in PvP. Interesting. So Chinese have had the same consensus years ago. Yet it was released on global, looks like seemingly with little changes. The seeming hallucination of Gemini that gave us basically that it's strategy, hero spell placement and so on. Maybe this was initially 3 to 4 years ago. But now it is just an auto battle until 100 and floor 101 is unattainable. That's the sad reality of restricted domain. I hope it will change this one day, but I have an impression that it won't. And this was basically the time when I stopped competing in Era of Chaos back in October, November, because I figured out that it is just not compatible with what I stand for normally. There is also a video on this channel that automates restricted domain. Good luck with the game mode, and if you find, for example, BlueStacks macros or some other automation tools, then go and do something else while the automation tool fights the 100 battles for you. That's what I recommend normally. An alternative option is that in many countries 112 is the help dial if you're in trouble, and similarly you pass floor 11 and instead of starting floor 12 you skip 100 stages, and 112 due to Sandro being there is a lot easier than 101 or 102 or 103 or 104. So you will be able to beat floor 112 within 3-4 months. It's actually 6 months plus, possibly, but you can still beat it even with a free-to-play account. I won't get there with this account. This was just an experiment for restricted domain mainly. But you got the information on how to play it.